Have you ever looked at someone who hurt you, lied to you, betrayed you, tore your heart apart and wondered, why do they seem like they're winning? Like life's rewarding them while you're here picking up the pieces. Well, here's a truth most never see coming. Life doesn't settle its debts on stage. It does it behind the curtain, in the quiet, in the dark, in the stillness of nights when no one is clapping. Because karma doesn't rush. It waits. And when it comes, it doesn't shout. It whispers loud enough for only the guilty to hear. You might see them smiling, posting like they're living their best life, but don't be fooled by the highlight reel. Don't confuse noise with peace. They didn't get away with it. Not the manipulation, not the betrayal, not the way they discarded you like nothing ever happened. Because something did happen. And now life is having a very personal conversation with them in the one language karma is fluent in consequence. No audience, no applause, just reality. And regret. In this video, you'll discover 5 quiet signs that someone is already living through the consequences of how they treated you. But this isn't about revenge. This isn't a call to watch them suffer. No, this is about truth. And truth doesn't scream. It sits with you in the silence. And it speaks louder than any argument ever could. You know the type. They ghosted you. They broke your trust. They gaslit you until you doubted your own sanity. And now they're glowing on Instagram. They're laughing in places you two never even visited. They're surrounded by people who were never around when you were breaking your back, trying to hold things together. It looks real, but is it because the most perfect photo can't hide soulless eyes? Let's get real. True happiness doesn't need to be documented. Only fake happiness needs constant proof. Watch the pattern, right after the fallout silence. Then suddenly, boom, the feed explodes, selfies with new people quotes about healing hashtags like peace and growth, and that oh-so-obvious glow-up campaign. From destroying something genuine to pretending they've found inner peace with someone new all in a week. Yeah, no, look again. That smile too wide, those eyes empty, that energy screaming insecurity, not peace. Because real healing is quiet. Real transformation doesn't come with a filter. The Stoics taught this long ago. Don't chase revenge. Be unlike the one who caused the pain. So while they perform, while they scramble to prove how fine they are, you don't need to clap back. You don't need to stalk their story or post a quote of your own. You heal, you grow, you rise. Because karma doesn't ask for your help, it's already at work. And here's the truth, while they pretend to have moved on deep down, they're still stuck, still spiraling, still searching for what they already lost. The Stoic response, true strength, is silent. Let me ask you something. What if the real test in life isn't what happens to us, but how we respond when it does? The philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And isn't that the core of strength, not in the punch, not in the comeback, but in the composure? Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who ruled an empire yet mastered himself, reminds us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Think about that, not to stoop, not to mirror the mess, but to rise above it quietly. That's why a true Stoic doesn't chase arguments, doesn't fire off passive-aggressive comments, doesn't scroll through their ex's story at 2 a.m. looking for clues or closure. No, they observe. Because when you're grounded in truth, you don't need to perform for peace. You are peace. Real peace is quiet. Insecurity is loud. The louder someone brags about how they've moved on, the more you can bet they haven't. Why? Because real healing doesn't need a stage or a filter or curated captions with hashtag growth. It simply is. Karma doesn't RSVP before it arrives. It shows up uninvited, slipping through the cracks of their confidence, whispering at night when the world is asleep. And in that stillness, they finally hear it, that inner voice, raw and relentless. You lost someone who only ever wanted to love you. And no caption, no vacation post, no shiny new relationship can drown out the weight of that truth. They can smile for the camera, they can pretend joy, but you feel it, because the heaviest mask to wear is pretending you're healed when you're still haunted. Karma doesn't always strike like lightning. Sometimes it erodes like water. Here's the thing, people get wrong about karma. They expect fireworks, explosions, a big dramatic downfall. But karma is precise, deliberate, subtle. It doesn't slam doors, it leaves them slightly ajar and waits. Sometimes karma isn't a dramatic twist, it's a slow unraveling. Imagine a thread being pulled quietly from a sweater. You don't notice it at first, until the whole thing begins to come apart. This is the second sign that karma is at work not through chaos, but through quiet subtraction. They begin to lose not in loud ways, but in whispers. A friend stops replying. A coworker who once trusted them no longer makes eye contact. An opportunity they thought was in the bag slips through like water. They brush it off. It's just bad luck, they say. Just a rough patch. But what happens when the rough patch becomes a pattern? What happens when the universe starts removing everything they held carelessly in their hands? That's karma not crashing in like a storm, but slowly, silently, like fog that never leaves, taking back every drop of grace they never valued. Eventually, they wake up and look around, and suddenly the illusion is gone. They find themselves surrounded by the wreckage of everything they once laughed at, brushed off, or treated like it would always be there. The same overreactions they used to roll their eyes at. Now they see it for what it truly was, you feeling deeply, you showing up, you caring. Maybe they called you too emotional. Maybe they said you cared too much, or that you were too soft for this world. But isn't it funny how people mock what they secretly wish they could feel? Because in a world that rewards detachment and numbness, you had heart. You felt. You tried. Remember those nights you stayed up replying to every "I'm not okay" text? You were their therapist, their cheerleader, their sanctuary. You forgave them over and over, even when they made you question your worth. You saw something in them they couldn't even see in themselves. And how did they repay you? They scoffed. They joked that you were needy, clingy too much. They mistook your loyalty for weakness. They treated your presence like it was guaranteed, not something they had to earn. But one day, you just stopped. You stopped offering your light to someone who only ever stood in your shadow. You stopped fighting for someone who never showed up for the battle. And in the softest act of rebellion, you didn't yell, you didn't beg, you just walked away. At first, they felt free, untouched, unbothered, almost relieved. But silence has a strange way of growing louder over time. Suddenly, the notifications stop. The late-night comfort vanishes. The circle of friends gets smaller and colder. And the people they once trusted, they turn out to be just like them, selfish, transactional, emotionally unavailable. Everything they thought they had in abundance, gone. The support that once arrived without being asked for, missing. The comfort of being seen, truly seen, irreplaceable. Because no one can recreate what you gave, especially not someone new who only knows the version of them that's still pretending to be healed. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one." And here's the thing about karma, it doesn't always punish. Sometimes it reveals. It strips away the lies we tell ourselves, and it does it slowly, ruthlessly. When someone mistreats a good person, it's not just a betrayal of you. It's a betrayal of the version of themselves that had access to something rare: peace, patience, forgiveness, depth. They weren't just losing you, they were losing their chance at becoming better through you. And karma knows exactly what it's doing. No explosion needed, no drama, just a quiet, unshakable unfolding of truth. Because in the end, the universe always collects what's owed, not with rage, but with reflection. And sometimes the most painful punishment is seeing yourself clearly for the very first time. Karma doesn't explode, it empties. And no, karma doesn't always show up like some dramatic punishment in a movie. Sometimes it creeps in like a quiet fog and makes everything feel empty. Every win feels less satisfying. Every room feels colder. Every new connection lacks substance. They post the pictures. They give the speeches. But deep down, they know the truth. They had something real. And they let it slip through their fingers like sand they thought would never run out. Let them lose. Let them stand in the middle of everything they thought they wanted and still feel hollow. Let them realize that the people surrounding them, now the noise, the parties, the endless scroll of new connections, none of it feels safe. None of it feels sacred. Because when karma comes to collect, it doesn't just take away people or possessions, it takes away peace. But more devastatingly, it strips away the version of themselves they were when they had your love. Back then, they had a version of themselves they didn't even appreciate, softer, warmer, more whole. And now, no matter how many times they try to recreate that feeling with someone new in some new place, it never quite feels the same. Because peace born from real love can't be duplicated. It can only be lost. Ever notice when someone starts talking in circles, but every road still leads back to you? That's not coincidence. That's karma whispering in their mind. The third silent sign that karma is at work. You're still there, living rent-free in their thoughts. Even when they act like you vanished from memory, you haven't. They won't say your name, not in public, not even in private conversations. But oh, if you listen closely, you'll hear it. They start posting again. But this time it's not selfies. It's cryptic quotes about betrayal, about loyalty, about fake people, about letting go and protecting their peace. You've seen the captions, "Some people never deserve my loyalty." Not everyone is worth your energy. At first glance, it sounds like general life advice. But you know better because you speak their language. You were once fluent in the dialect of their pain, their pride, their need to be seen without ever asking for it. You know when they're posting for the world and when they're really posting for you? You're scrolling through your feed one day, minding your business, and suddenly there it is. A post that hits you like a bullet dressed in silk. It doesn't mention you by name. No tag, no mention. But you feel it. Every word screams you. It's like they're trying to get your attention, without looking like they want it. Isn't that the cruelest game? They want to be noticed, but they don't want to seem like they care. They want to reach you, but ego won't let their fingers dial. That isn't power. That isn't healing. That's a crumbling conscience trying to scream through the cracks of a collapsed ego. Maybe their friends don't catch it. Maybe no one else sees the pattern. But you do, because once you love them deeply enough to hear what they never said, you could read the silence between their words like poetry. And now those same silences are echoing back at them. Only this time they're the ones haunted by the sound. Karma doesn't always punish with dramatic events. Sometimes it punishes with obsession, with thoughts that play on loop, with memories that linger like smoke, with regrets that won't stay buried. They didn't expect your memory to last this long, but now it's the one thing they can't escape. That song you used to play, it hits different now. That inside joke you once shared, it echoes in rooms you've never even stepped into. And you remain silent. You don't clap back. You don't quote them in return. You don't need to. Because as every Stoic knows, revenge is not silence with pain. It's silence with peace. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. See, when you reply to someone's passive aggression, their lies, their twisted version of your story, what you're really doing is validating them. You're stepping into their arena, playing their game by their rules. But when you stay silent, that's when you take your power back. Epictetus once said, "If someone speaks ill of you, live in such a way that no one will believe it." So when they talk around you behind your back or toss your name into half-true stories wrapped in victimhood, don't correct them. Don't explain. Don't chase clarity. Don't give them the satisfaction of knowing they got a reaction. Let them carry your name around like a secret burden, because the more they talk, the more they expose the truth. Not about you, but about themselves. You walked away. But here's the twist: they never did. They're still there, trapped in the same cycle, repeating the same lines to different people, posting recycled quotes about healing while quietly bleeding inside. Let them talk. Let them broadcast their healing like it's a performance on a stage. You don't need to be in their life to still live in their mind. That's karma. And make no mistake, the mind is the loudest prison of all, especially when the ghost that haunts you is the one you pushed away. And what do? Nothing. You stay silent. Because silence is not emptiness, it's eloquence. It says everything they can't bear to admit. When someone betrays a good person, they don't just lose a relationship. They lose something much deeper. They lose the ability to trust anyone who reminds them of that goodness, including themselves. And that brings us to the fourth sign someone is quietly receiving their karma. They stop believing in others. And then little by little, they stop believing in themselves. It starts with what looks like self-protection. They say things like, "I've learned to keep my circle small. I don't trust people anymore. Everyone's fake these days." Sounds strong, right? But look closer. That wall they've built. It's not made of wisdom, it's made of fear. Not boundaries, not growth, just fear wearing armor. Fear that grew in the shadow of guilt. And you've seen it happen before, haven't you? They used to be open, laughing without filter, trusting easily, speaking with warmth. Now they're guarded, scanning every sentence like it's a trap. Why? Because something shifted, not on the outside, but inside. Silently, slowly, steadily. They assume betrayal before trust. They decode kindness like it's a threat. They dissect silence like it's a setup. Because deep down, they know. They know what they did. They know what they're capable of. And when you've once inflicted harm on someone who only ever showed you grace, you begin to believe that everyone else might be capable of doing the same thing to you. This is karma's most personal punishment, not public humiliation, not a dramatic downfall. Self-suspicion, a gnawing voice that whispers, maybe I'm the one who can't be trusted. And that voice, it doesn't scream, it erodes. There was a time when they stood tall, head high, chest, out, convinced they were in control. I've got this, they used to say. I'm always one step ahead. But now that same inner voice has shifted, and it whispers something far more chilling. Maybe I'm the problem. Can you imagine how terrifying that is? Because once you begin to doubt yourself, not just your decisions, but your entire identity, even the quietest room becomes deafening. Even the calmest moment feels like a trap. Even genuine love feels undeserved. You can sit in a room full of peace and still feel like you're being hunted by your own mind. And as Seneca once wrote, he who has done wrong rarely trusts others because deep down he knows what he himself is capable of. The ancient Stoics understood this truth better than anyone. They knew that true peace is not external. It isn't found in achievements, applause, or the next romantic high. It's found in alignment when your actions match your values, when your conscience isn't at war with your behavior. But when you betray your own ethics, when you wrong someone who only ever meant well, you don't just lose them, you lose pieces of yourself. And karma, it doesn't always knock on your door with thunder and flames. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet fracture, an invisible break in your soul. You can't see it in the mirror, but you feel it. Suddenly there's a tightness in your chest that never fully goes away. A restlessness that follows you even into your dreams. A quiet voice that whispers, you don't deserve this. Even when something good finally comes along, you question it. You sabotage it. You scan it for flaws, waiting for the moment it turns on you, because that's what you once did to someone else. Let them live with that silence. Let them sit in a room full of people and still feel unsafe. Let them mistrust every compliment, every act of kindness, because that's the shadow they cast on others for so long. Here's what karma really is. It's not just the haunting of memories, it's the paranoia that comes after. It's looking over your shoulder in relationships. It's expecting betrayal from people who only want to love you. And the worst prison? It isn't steel bars. It's a soft bed where you lie awake every night guarded by your own guilty conscience. So when they lose trust in everyone, don't pity them. When they push people away, don't feel the urge to prove that you were different. That's not your role anymore. You were never meant to be their savior. You offered truth. They chose betrayal. You brought depth. They responded with manipulation. And now life is giving them what they earned, not with fireworks or collapse, but with something far crueler, the quiet erosion of self-worth. Not drama, not chaos, just the slow realization that they're crumbling from the inside out. Because karma doesn't yell, it introduces you to yourself. And then comes the final blow, the fifth and most undeniable sign that someone is silently receiving their karma. Life sends them someone just like them. Not just a bad match, not just a messy breakup, but a full-fledged mirror, a person who embodies everything they once were when they hurt you. Sweet, charming, magnetic. The kind of person who says all the right things at first, just like they did when they were winning your trust. At first it feels like destiny. They think finally someone who gets me. But what they're really meeting is themselves. They think they've struck gold. They smile like they've finally met their soulmate, the chemistry electric. The connection instant, intense, almost too good to be true. And that's because it is. What they don't realize is this: they're not falling into love. They're falling into a loop, a karmic cycle tailor-made by the universe, not to show them who they'll love, but to show them who they've been. Have you ever walked into a room that feels eerily familiar, even though you've never been there before? That's what this is. Except the room isn't physical. It's emotional, déjà vu. This time, they're not the ones in control. Remember how they once made you feel, like no matter how much you gave, it was never quite enough. Like love had to be earned. But the rules kept changing. Now the tables have turned. They're the ones anxiously checking their phone, waiting for texts that never come. They're the ones refreshing social media for a sign, a signal, anything. They used to leave you hanging on red. Now they're the ones hanging on hope, the game of hot and cold they once played so well. Now they're living it with someone who burns them with silence, then floods them with affection, then disappears again only to return and say, "You're too emotional." Sound familiar? They once turned your vulnerability into a punchline. You'd open up and they'd laugh it off. You'd cry and they'd call you dramatic. You'd ask for reassurance and they'd say you were needy. Now they're the ones opening up, only to be met with rolled eyes, dismissive tones, and emotional distance. They once had your loyalty and they tossed it aside like it was disposable. Now they're chasing someone who refuses to commit, someone with one foot in and the other halfway out the door. At first they try to explain it away. This person is complicated. They've just been hurt before. They don't mean it. But deep down in the quiet moments, the ones they can't distract themselves from, a realization begins to surface. This is what I did to someone. It creeps in slowly like a fog rolling over calm waters. They don't say it out loud. They may never admit it to anyone, not even themselves. But it's there, in the pause before sleep, in the silence after another message goes unanswered, in the heaviness that follows another failed attempt at connection. Here's the truth: this pain, it isn't random. It's not just unfortunate timing or bad luck. It's karmic symmetry. It's the universe showing them, not through lectures, not through punishment, but through experience, exactly what they made someone else feel. And there's something profoundly poetic about that, because karma isn't about vengeance, it's about vision. And when they start to see themselves clearly, honestly, it hurts in a way that no external consequence ever could. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. But here's the twist: the universe doesn't seek revenge. It seeks something much more sacred: restoration. Karma doesn't come with fire and fury. It doesn't destroy their world. It simply balances the scale by introducing them to someone they can't control, can't fix, can't predict. Someone who becomes the mirror they can't escape. This isn't about making them suffer. It's about making them feel. Because let's be honest, the most unforgettable lessons in life are the ones we don't just hear. They're the ones we live through. They used to roll their eyes when you showed how much you cared. They called you too much, too sensitive, too emotional, too available. But now they find themselves crying over someone who couldn't care less. The tables have turned, not with thunder, not with a bang, but with the cruelest irony of all. They're being met with the same indifference they once served you. They once mocked your needs, called your desire for reassurance, clingy, your softness, a weakness. Now they're being told you're too needy by someone who doles out affection like it's a rare currency, who disappears when they crave connection, who loves like a storm, loud one moment, gone the next. They used to walk away from you like they were untouchable. Now they're begging someone to stay, to text back, to care. And that's when it hits them. Not all at once, not like a slap to the face, but gradually, painfully, like a slow burn they can't locate but feel everywhere. They're not just being hurt, they're being mirrored. Every tear they cry now carries the reflection of a moment they dismissed yours. Every time they're left unseen, unheard, or unloved, it echoes what they once made you feel. Let them meet that match. Let them sit in the whirlwind of confusion, in the void of uncertainty, in the ache of being seen just enough to stay, but never enough to feel safe. Because this time, they don't get to rewrite the narrative. They don't get to cast themselves as the victim while blaming the villain. There's no one left to gaslight, no one to guilt trip, no one to spin the story for. Because the person on the other side of this hurt isn't some cold-hearted monster. It's them reflected back through a new face, a new relationship, a new version of the same behavior they once inflicted. This isn't revenge. It's not punishment. It's return. And karma doesn't roar. It doesn't storm in with fury and fire. It simply reflects. So when they finally break down and ask, why is this happening to me? The answer is quietly, devastatingly simple. You're not being punished. You're being shown. And that's why you don't need to chase justice. You don't need to clap back or share your side or prove you were right all along. Why? Because they're already fighting a battle they can't win a war with themselves. Karma doesn't need reinforcements. It doesn't need your anger or your pain. It only asks for one thing: your silence, your stillness, your refusal to shrink just to meet them at their level. Because while they're still tangled in lies, trapped in the web of pride, blame, and manipulation, you've stepped into something infinitely more powerful: clarity. You see, karma isn't just about what happens to them, it's also about what happens to you. It's about what begins the moment you finally stop waiting for an apology and realize you don't need one to move forward. It's when you let go of the idea that closure comes from their words, because peace becomes your closure. It's when you no longer need the world to know the full story, because time itself has become your witness. And it's when you stop needing them to feel the depth of what they did, because life in its quiet wisdom already knows how to deliver the lesson they refuse to learn. Your job was never to punish them. It was never to make them pay or prove a point or balance the scale. Your job is to rise, to become so steady, so deeply rooted, so unshakably whole that nothing, not betrayal, not loss, not even memory, can disturb your peace again. That's not revenge. That's evolution. Not even the shadow of the person who hurt you deserves to have power over your peace. That is the Stoic way. We don't waste our breath cursing our enemies. We don't chase after apologies we know will never come. We don't beg the world to validate our side of the story. We do something far more powerful. We walk forward calmly, quietly, with discipline, so deep it humbles the universe itself. So if you're watching this and someone has wounded you, someone who ghosted you, gaslighted you, never looked back, never said sorry or worse, pretended they had nothing to apologize for, let them go. Let them run. Let them pose, post-pretend. Because while they may look free in photos beneath that filter, they are haunted by the one thing they cannot mute: the truth. And trust this: people who lie to the world, they sleep just fine. But people who lie to themselves, they wake up in cold sweat at 2:47 a.m., haunted by the echo of who they used to be and what they let slip away. They don't sleep at all. So if this message has stirred something in you, if it hit where you still hurt, don't pour another ounce of your energy chasing closure from the past. Let the past stay where it belongs, behind you. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me what line hit you hardest. What sentence echoed something you've lived but never said aloud? Because when we speak our truth, we help others realize they're not walking this path alone. And if you're choosing the quiet path, the path of inner strength, not outer noise, then hit subscribe to Think Stoic 101. This isn't just about healing. It's about transforming. It's about training the mind to lead, not react, to clarify, not chase, to build peace so unshakable, not even betrayal can crack it. Let karma handle what karma handles. And you keep becoming someone they'll never have access to again. That's not revenge. That's not ego. That's evolution. And evolution doesn't shout. It doesn't rage. It grows quietly, consistently, powerfully. So powerfully, in fact, that even the world must pause to watch it unfold in silence. Because growth like that, it makes noise and without making a sound.